What's up, YouTube? So I'm gonna be changing a clutch on a 2018 Subaru WRX. First off, I gotta disconnect the negative cable. Get that out of the way. Then I gotta remove the intercooler. So I gotta take all the brackets off that holds it, loose the hose clamp so I could disconnect, and then just take that out. And these bolts are 12 mil, and for the clamp these are 8. Just gotta get these loose. This has a rubber grommet in it and a metal collar. It sits like so. So what I did, I just put a screwdriver in there, pry this out, and what I'm going to do now is just maneuver the intercooler, push it towards the vehicle to get this side loose, and then I'm just going to maneuver this side out. This ground strap has to be taken off. Now I got to remove the slave cylinder, not the hydraulic line. Leave that intact, just remove this bolt and this one right in here. Pick this whole thing up. Just gonna move it over to the side right here. I gotta remove this ground strap. Gotta remove this mount and the connectors. So to take this bolt out, I got a 14 and I got another 14 open end, just to hold that nut from spinning. Break that loose. Now this is loose on this end. I'm gonna take it off from back here also. Get the 14 on it. And this should just come right out. The bolt is actually on this side, on the left side, and it's a welded nut on the other side. So you really don't need to hold it with an open end, but you could still hold it just in case. It might be rusted or broken off for some reason. So I gotta get this bolt for the starter, one on top. And then if you look down in here, the other one is right there. For the upper bolt, 14 millimeter. To get the bottom bolt, it's better to go in from the bottom, but I'm doing everything at the top right now before I jack the car up and put it on jack stands. So what I did, I put an extension on my 14. Once I get this bottom bolt out, then it's just to pull the starter. Basically, to get that bottom bolt out, this is the starter. I got my extension. This is like a 5-inch extension with my 14. I go in here and I go under like so. You could see it right here. And got it to that bottom bolt so I could ratchet it off. I'm trying not to remove the starter. I take it off the tranny, but I'm trying not to disconnect all the wires. But for this small wire right here, I'm just gotta squeeze, like right where my thumb is. Just gotta squeeze it and unplug. And once I get that out of the way, then I'm gonna try to pick the starter up with the main power wire and just try to move it out of the way. And as I go along, if I need to take it out completely, then I'll take it out completely. But for now, I'm just gonna pick it up out of the way like that. Now I gotta unplug these connectors, and they're all just squeeze and pull. I just gotta remove the clip for the wire harness. So I got a needle nose plier going in from this side right here. I'm gonna squeeze it. There we go. And that's how it is. Just squeeze on it right here, and that comes right out. And I just take all my wires and kind of wrap them around whatever hose or any area that's gonna have it out of the way, so it's not touching the transmission. And that should be it for the top. I gotta take the axle off. I'm not gonna get in too much detail. I'm just gonna take it off. I have another video of a Subaru Forester that I did an axle change on it, so I guess you could reference that video if you want to get more details. But for this, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it and try to catch as much of it on film as I can. And I just use a chisel, open up the tab that secure the axle nut. It's not recommended to reuse these, so I'll probably just change them. And this axle nut is 32 mil. Good. Axle is now seized up. Move nice and easy. And I'm just going to use a 12 mil to remove the brake line hose. That way I have some room. And I'm going to remove these strut bolts, but I'm going to mark it. So I put a little mark on the bolt and on the spindle, and I'll do the same for the bottom one. Once I take them off, I'll show exactly why I put a mark on them. And I'm just gonna hold the bolt with a 3/4, and on the other side I'm using the impact gun. I took the top one out, but this is the reason why I put the mark on it. So you see the mark is here and right here. So when I put it back on, it'll line up like so. But this is the reason why. If you look, you see this lobe right here, and as I rotate it, you see it gets flat. Maybe you see it better like so. And what this does, that's what adjusts for your wheel alignment. It adjusts your camber, so the inward and outward motion as far as aligning the wheels to make sure it's aligned within the manufacturer's specifications. That's what that bolt does. I put the bolt back in just to demonstrate this real quick. Once it's in, that little lobe you saw, if you look right here, you're gonna see this moving. See that movement? So when you take it for wheel alignment, they move this to adjust your camber. So that's what that is. That's why it's marked. That way when you put it back on, it goes back on the way it was. If your alignment's off, then you go do an alignment. This is the ABS sensor wire. It's just a clip. Get a flat head in there. Squeeze on the side. Then right here we have another 12. Now this line is free. The brake line is free. I left the lower bolt in for the shock. Take that out last. And the lower bolt is just regular. There's no lobe on it. Now that this is loose, the wires are disconnected, I just gotta go under the vehicle and pry out the axle. Get my pry bar and I'm gonna wedge it between the axle and the transmission. And I have a catch pan and just gonna pry on it. And you can see fluid coming out. I have a catch pan that drain. Once I have the axle loose from this end, and I could go back over to the spindle and pull it out from there. And I'm trying to be extra cautious. I'm not wearing the proper gloves anyway, so I don't want to bust my finger open. Once I got it up top here, and I reach all the way under, grab it, and I pull it out of the transmission and just take the entire axle out. And it's the same exact procedure for the other side. The size to take out the drain plug is a T70. So I'm just gonna put it on an extension. You can see that sit right in. And that's what it looks like. And I'm seeing some shavings, so hopefully it's not the gearbox that's messed up. Now I gotta remove this heat shield. It sits right above the exhaust pipe, and it's held in by 4 12mm. Now before I remove the drive shaft, there are bolts back here. It's 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm actually gonna put a mark on it. It already have a mark, but I'm gonna put my own mark. If you look here, you can kind of see a little mark here and then there. So if it lines up like so, they all line up. But I'm gonna put my own mark, and I'm just gonna go here, here, here. That way when I put it back, it goes back exactly how I took it off. And the reason I'm doing that is this is a balanced drive shaft. You could actually see the weights on it that they use to balance it. So I just want to put it back exactly how it was. And these bolts back here, they're 12mm. So I'm just gonna try to get those loose. And I applied the e-brakes just to prevent the drive shaft from spinning while I'm trying to take these bolts out. And you can see it's a bolt, a lock washer, and a nut. Now I'm probably gonna have to disengage the parking brake, rotate the drive shaft so this top bolt could be at the bottom. This one I'm not gonna take off all the way just yet. I want to leave that one to hold it. So I gotta go to the middle of it and remove these 2 bolts for the carrier bearing, and these are 14mm. So now what I'll do, I'll just put one of them back in, a couple of threads just to hold it. Okay, got that. Now I could finish taking this one off. And I'm just gonna pull the 2 sections, pull it out of the transmission. bring it straight back, and that is out. So from the passenger side of the transmission, I gotta take these bolts out so I could take the plate off, and I'm just trying to gain access to the cables, the shifter cables, so I could disconnect those. For this one, we have a pin right here, and just gotta slide the pin out, and in the back there's a clip that holds the cable, and it's the same type of clip that's actually on your brake line. So it's just to wedge something in there and pry it out. And I just sprayed it a little bit with a little WD-40. It's kind of awkward getting that out. For the pin, just gonna put my screwdriver in the front of it and push on it, and that's gonna push it right out. Put my hand there so it doesn't like ricochet and hit me in the face. That's what the pin looks like. It just slides right in. Take this washer off. I should just be able to use my medium-sized pry bar and just pop this off. Now that the cable is loose, is to get in here now and try to get this clip off. So I'm gonna try a method for that. I'm gonna put my pry bar right here. I'm gonna try to put my screwdriver handle on the transmission and pry it right off. And this is it. So this cable is disconnected. Move that out of the way. There's another one up top. It's gonna be a little more difficult, but pretty much the same idea. You could see the clip right here. Instead of me taking the clip off for the other cable, I'm just gonna remove these two bolts. One here, one there. And that's what holds the bracket that the cable is attached to. So the bracket is off with the cable. Now I just gotta get to the point where it's hooked in the tranny and disconnect that. And I gotta take the hanger for the exhaust. So I'm gonna take this bolt out. And these are actually 12. So from here, I'm gonna remove the bolts for the transmission. So it's a 14 mil. Get on there with my ratchet, and I'm using a wobble extension. Just gonna break that loose. Bottom one, I believe it's a stud, so it might just be the nut that comes off. Now this is the longest of all the bolts I've taken out, so I'll just make a note of that. And I suggest taking lots of pictures doing this. That way, when everything got to go back together, you got pictures to use as reference to see what goes where. I'm going to remove the cross member and the transmission mount. So I'm going to take these nuts off first, and then I start backing these out slowly and just kind of see what the transmission does. I'm not going to take them out all the way, maybe halfway or so, and then just watch and see what happens. And all these are 14. So I think I'm gonna actually put a jack under the tranny right here, up closer towards the front, and once I'm able to remove this bracket, then I could bring the jack further back. And this is a jack I bought from Harbor Freight, and it uses a 1/2-inch drive, so I just got an extension on the impact. Okay, so according to what I'm seeing, I'm going to leave this bracket on for now, and I'm going to take this cross member off. Then my transmission jack would be able to go right up against the tranny. Right now it's hitting it, so I need to remove this. So if I get this out, I'll wiggle that out of the way. Bring my transmission jack as far back as I can. There we go. Now I'm on the transmission. So now it's supported. Alright, so my trick on removing the tranny is get a block of wood, stick it right here by the mount, and then get a hammer, and I just bang on the top. And then if you look, you can see that gap starts opening up. Alright, so once this gap is wide enough, then I get a screwdriver and put it in there and just pry it out like so. And I just try to do that all around, and from here it's just to rock the tranny back and forth, and it should come out. Okay, that's rocking it from the bottom. And I have my brother helping me, so almost there. It's about to be separated. Yep, that sounded like it. I think that might be it. So from prying it from the bottom, putting the block of wood right here and hitting it, it's separated. Put a screwdriver in here to kind of pry it open, and keep doing that back and forth, and it's finally off. So I gotta check up top, make sure that the shaft is out, the input shaft, and that's out. So the last cable is this one that sit on top like so, and it's just to sit on top like so, and I just put a pry bar under it on both sides and just pry it up, and it pops right out. And another tip that I figured out was to get the pipe, once you start dropping the transmission, the pipe is going to be in the way a little bit. So to get that pipe out of the way, I just got a long crowbar, wedged it up in the tunnel right here, and then put the middle against the pipe, and that's how it looks. And just pry the pipe out of the way, and the pipe is, you're gonna move the pipe that way and just pry it out of the way, and that way the tail end of the transmission could slide past it, and that would allow you to get the front end of the transmission to pass these two little lips right here, one right here and the other on this side. Okay, so now it's to take pressure plate off. the bolts to hold it, like the last bolt. So I got 1 bolt, 2 bolts, 3, 4, and I got 2 more to take off. Now I gotta take out the last 2. Just gonna brace it so it don't fall. Alright, so just gotta use a pry bar, got it right here, and just gonna pry it out. Gotta get it from this side, bottom. Here we go. I'm gonna have to change the flywheel. There's actually a groove in it. So to remove the flywheel, it's 14 mil, and I just got it on my impact. And these are torqued to like 50 something foot-pounds. I gotta double check. Just leave 1 in just to hold it. And this is heavy, so it's best to get a second hand. There's actually a trick to remove the flywheel if you're using hand tool, and the same to tighten it. You could actually put one of the bolts in the flywheel, and then as you start backing it out, if the flywheel starts spinning, it's gonna go counterclockwise. Then you see this stud right here. You could wedge a screwdriver between the bolt that you threaded back in and the stud, and as the flywheel turns and it comes back and hit the screwdriver, it should lock it in, or just some combination like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's one of those combinations. You put it in, and as you turn, it comes on, it hits the screwdriver and it locks, and you'll be able to take it out. Same thing putting it back on, and you put your screwdriver in there to hold it. You could have someone hold it actually, and then you put your bolts in and you torque it. Or you could just come up with some type of combination on how to lock one of these teeth in. But either way, it could be done. It's not a lot of torque, so 54, 55 foot-pounds of torque is not enough where if you have someone holding a screwdriver to brace against it, it's not gonna spin. So I got this last bolt. I'm gonna take this out. And the flywheel comes out. This is the clutch bearing, and that goes right here. But to put this in, you don't want to hit on the inside, you want to hit the outside. So I got a 24mm socket that fits perfect on the outside, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bearing in, try to get it nice and straight, and then I'm going to sit the socket on top of it, and I'm just going to tap it in. Check, make sure it's going in flush. Okay, perfect. I'm trying to have it sit flush with the surface. No lip, no hangover, just sit nice and flush. So what you want to be careful of is this crank trigger wheel, and it's just this disc that you could take it off, but if you look on the edge, it looks like teeth, and the crank sensor reads that, which is right here. It reads that and determines the timing. Now there's a keyway. You could see this little plug right here, and there's a hole on it, so it sits right in there like so. It's pretty much kind of foolproof, but it can get rotated when you're putting the flywheel on, and then it'll throw everything out of sync. So just keep it exactly how it is and put the flywheel back on. So I just clean up everything with some brake clean, put the crank trigger wheel back on. The pin It sits right in the groove that it's meant to sit in. All the holes line up. It's exactly how I took it off. If you could avoid taking it off, then I would say go ahead and avoid taking it off. All I gotta do now is I have to get my flywheel up and centered basically. I have these all snug down and I did them in a crisscross pattern. So the way I did it to not have the flywheel turn, I put another bolt right here on the engine, and then if you could see, my screwdriver is sitting across and it's wedged on the top. It's not touching the flywheel to scratch it, but it's wedged on the top of this bolt that I put in the flywheel, and the middle of the screwdriver is wedged against this other bolt in the engine. So as I'm torquing it, tightening it, the screwdriver is preventing it from spinning. And it's the same way taking it off. You would just put it on the opposite end, but it's the same setup. And I'm gonna go in a crisscross pattern, and these are torqued to 55 foot-pounds. And I just did these two, the bottom one, the top one. Now I'm going crossways. Now I go this way. Then I do these two. They're all torqued at 55, and I'm just gonna go around and check them again. Once all these are torqued down to 55 foot-pounds, the screwdriver is going to be hard to come out. So you're just going to hold this bolt that I put up top, push counterclockwise, and just like that, it loosens up the screwdriver. Take it out, and this is one bolt, and then this is the other one I put on the engine just to brace the screwdriver. I had these other ones in just to help me hold the flywheel up so I could line it up. I'm just gonna spray it down again with some brake cleaner, clean that up, and put the clutch on. So after I torque down the flywheel, I gotta change the throwout bearing, and I also have to grease these splines and test fit the new clutch. So to change the throwout bearing is just to grab the fork. It's actually like it's snapped in a ball. Gotta hold the fork and pull forward. And I may have to use both hands for this. Pull forward, and it bearing comes off. See, the fork snaps right out. And there's a little area right here, a little indent, and this is the ball right here that this spring snaps it onto the ball. So I'm just gonna spray that down with some brake clean that up. And here I have it cleaned up. I just sprayed some brake clean, and the fork, I sprayed that down also, got all the gunk that was in there. Now this spring could be removed, and it's pretty easy. It's just to pinch it and pull it out like so, and you could get to clean all in here. And the same thing, put it back in. It has a little cutout right down here, so it's just to put the spring back in, slide it in the bottom, squeeze it, and it snaps right back in. So now I just got to get some grease, put a little bit on the splines, put a little on the back here where it touches the throwout bearing, and I'm going to put some on this ball right here. And this ball could be changed, so if it's damaged, it could actually be changed. Just put a socket on it and take it out. I'm not sure what size it is, but it looks like a 15 or something like that. This one's in good condition, so I'm just gonna leave it. Your clutch kit should come with a packet of grease, and that's the grease here. But in case it didn't, you could actually just use some high temp axle grease. I know some people would say not to use that, but I've seen it used, so it's never been hasn't been a problem. So you just take some grease, you kind of smear it on, and you don't want to put a whole lot. You just want to like a thin coating. And when you're doing all this, the spraying of the brake clean to clean up the area, just make sure you wear safety glasses. You don't want that thing getting in your eyes. Once I have the grease on, I'm actually going to change my glove. So now I got a fresh pair of gloves on. I'm going to grab my clutch plate, and I'm just going to take this and do a fitment test. So I'm going to put it on, make sure it lines up and it slides in smooth, move back and forth. And this way you're you're ensuring that the splines are not damaged. Sometimes they are damaged and you're gonna have to change the shaft, but this way, you know, the splines are not damaged. Go back and forth with it, moves nice and smooth. And once you take it off, be very careful, but if you look at it, you see a little excess grease right here. Take a rag, wipe all the excess off. Try not to get it on the clutch itself, and then grab your rag after you wipe that off, and you just want to just wipe the grease that you put on. Wipe that off. You don't want to like take the whole thing off. You just want to have a light film, and the best way to get that is to fit the clutch on. So once all that's done, now I could install the pilot bearing. Now I gotta take the fork and the bearing, and I'm gonna slide the fork inside the bearing like so. So it's gonna sit like that. And I'm gonna slide it back up through that opening. Slide the bearing on. And once I slide the bearing on, it snaps right into place. Heard that snap? That's that clip that held it. Bring the fork up. There you go. It's moving nice and smooth. And that's how you install the throwout bearing. Okay, so now I got the clutch and the alignment tool. And the alignment tool, this end goes inside the bearing. So put it in, and the flat side of the clutch face the flywheel. Push the tool all the way in, slide that on, and we know that's centered. Then the pressure plate, just gotta line up the pins. See one pin here, one here, another one up top. Line that up, and that sits right in nice and flush. Once the clutch and pressure plate is back on, I'm gonna torque it down the spec, and in this case it's 24 foot-pounds, and you could see I have the screwdriver wedged back in. I just have it sitting on the pressure plate. It's not touching anything else, just the edge of the pressure plate. And I'm just gonna go in a crisscross pattern, and I'm using an extension on this, so I know, you know, you use an extension, it throws it off. 24 may become 23 foot-pounds, so I try to compensate a little bit by adjusting my torque wrench to 25 foot-pounds instead of 24. So I'm just gonna torque that, crisscross. And another method could also be to line up the flywheel along one of the edges right here, and I just stick my screwdriver in there. Make sure I get it as far in as possible. So it ends up looking like that. Want to get it on this edge. Got it in like so. And once I have it in, get my torque wrench on. "25 foot-pounds. Okay. 25. Just a quick tip. Once this mount is removed, I'm going to put the bolt back in the back, and I'll show you why in just a sec. I'm just going to thread that in by hand. That's it. Thread it in by hand. Leave it like that. Now, once the transmission is separated from the engine and you take it out of the vehicle, the engine is actually sitting flat right now. Once the transmission gets moved, the engine is going to rotate forward. So to put the transmission back in, you're never going to get it in with the engine rotate forward. You're going to have to rotate the engine back to its original position, or even a little further back. Now, to do that, there's nothing for you to push on. Even if you have 2-3 people, it's just not going to work. So what I find is right here you have a little notch, and this is for, like, if you're removing the engine, you could put the chain on it to hoist the engine out. So I'm going to use this point and that point, and I'm going to use some ratcheting straps, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So pretty much this is the setup. The bolt that I put back, I hook the strap around it. That's what it looks like. I bring it under this tubing, and I hook it into the area where you hoist the engine. And what's gonna happen is, once you ratchet this section, it's gonna squeeze, it's gonna pull in actually, and what it's gonna do is gonna pull on this section of the engine, and therefore allow the engine to roll backwards, and it'll be in perfect position when you're ready to put the transmission back in. It'll be exactly where it needs to be. You could ratchet it a little bit more to get a little more twist out of it, or you could release it a little bit if it's not lined up. And another thing also, when you have the strap on, take note not to damage any sensors like this one right here. Just try to keep it away from it, but try not to pinch any wires. Just double check as you're ratcheting. Just keep looking. Ratchet, you check just to make sure you're not pinching any wires, putting any pressure on any sensors to damage it or anything like that. And that's the best way I find to get it to line back up so you could put the transmission back on. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.